What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X for post-game coverage of the Mets versus Dodgers Game 3 of the National League Championship Series. Now, before we get into this game, which, that was a rough one, let's just say that. I just want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel if you have not already for live recordings of the Mets Weekly Podcast, all postseason long, following every single game, which is right here. For those of you watching on playback, for those of you that want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on your post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, I want to let you guys know I love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all of that great stuff. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show. I'll try to pull up as many as I can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, remember to follow Mets Weekly on X and TikTok for future content over there. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on any of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio versions of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. For those of you tuning in on audio right now, in the future, make sure to tune in for our pre-game shows around 90 minutes before the game. That will be going on, of course, all Mets postseason long, but only on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's get into this post-game show. I see a few people in the chat already. Stevie Mac saying, well, that sucked. Absolutely. MLB just posted that the Dodgers have 4 shutouts in the last 5 games. Also, Roberts is out managing Mendoza. Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Ricardo coming in saying bad game. Absolutely. Now, looking back on how this series has gone on so far, I would say that tonight was pretty much an absolute repeat of what we saw in Game 1. We saw the Mets keeping it close for a second, getting a few opportunities, momentum being killed automatically by not doing anything with runners in scoring position. And then we also just saw the pitching staff just get blown up and take us out of the game completely. The offense was not clicking. The at-bats were lethargic. They were terrible. And there were some questionable calls, let's just say that, going into this game in regarding to a lot of things. And I do think that there are a few things that can come to conclusion with this one as to where, yes, this Mets team absolutely has fought all the way back. And I do believe that they will fight back again in this series because they could just continue to do that. That's the identity of this team. And I do believe that they will end up winning at least one of these games at Citi Field. Hopefully the next 2 they do win. But I'm hoping for just for them to win tomorrow, or maybe go to LA down 3-2. We'll see what happens, of course. But the Mets obviously need to win games before we start talking about that. But when we talk about this team overall, of them being as resilient as they are fighting back the way that they have, I do think that they will. The problem is that the Dodgers took Game 1 of this series. You can't keep exchanging wins with them because then they're going to end up winning in 7. If you just keep getting punched in the throat and you punch right back harder, which is great, if you take them to 7 games, it's something that you probably did not expect if you're from the outside world. But at the end of the day, if you do want to win this series, they're going to have to win back-to-back games somehow. Because the Dodgers taking Game 1, you can't keep exchanging wins like this. They're running out of time for that. There was so many things that went on in this game, and I am starring a lot of comments that you guys have in the chat right now. I will bring up as many as I can. But in terms of what I saw from this game, I have a few takeaways of like some off topics to talk about during this game, of some conclusions that I think I've pretty much come to at this point regarding this team and some players. But let's just say the offense did not get the job done whatsoever. And I got really, really frustrated in the fact that The Mets were pretty much beating themselves this entire game in terms of what they got from Walker Buehler, what they saw in front of him. Buehler did not pitch well in this game. Buehler did not look like, the Buehler from old. This was not the Buehler from old. The Mets bailed him out every single time, every single chance that they get. When it comes to Walker Buehler, he did not pitch a good game today. The Mets just completely beat themselves. Here's what really pisses me off in this point, okay? And listen, I have all love for all Mets fans. That's not true. But I have all, respect for all Mets fans. I understand their passion and how upset they get. And the problem with this is the whole victim mentality that goes along with it, of everything goes wrong, nothing goes our way, and, everything is for everybody. Yes, I understand Shohei Ohtani is put under a massive spotlight, and it's very, very annoying. But when it comes to the Mets baseballs that they were hitting dying on the warning track, and then you see the Dodgers baseballs flying out off of their bat, that really, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, that had absolutely nothing to do with the world just being against the Mets. Okay? This is exactly what I have talked about so many times. And when you talk about a ballpark such as Citi Field, this is a pull hitter's park. It has been known that it is a pull hitter's park. Not everybody can have the raw power that JD Martinez once had. Right now, he is not displaying it. More on JD later. The way that I look at it is, this is cold weather, okay? The ball is not going to fly out the way that you think. You're in Citi Field, which is the biggest pitcher's ballpark known to man. I think it's like the second biggest ballpark or whatever. You have to pull the baseball. You have to pull the baseball, and you have to hit it hard. If you are going to slug and try and outslug this team, you have to pull the baseball. Every single time that I saw the Mets lift the ball, it was to the opposite field. Every single home run that the Dodgers hit was pulled. It was pulled, and they got on top of it. They caught up to it. They hit, 4 homers in this game? 4 homers, 3 homers in this game? All of them were pulled. And that's kind of how you can beat this cold weather of things dying on the warning track. The Mets got so many chances from Buehler. He gave them so many pitches to pull. So many. And for some reason, they were just staring at it. They were caught guessing. They were chasing things out of the zone. Just basically they just froze. Like they basically just froze with runners in scoring position, which was, similar to what we were seeing in Game 4 before Lindor finally broke out. I mean, there was so many things wrong that went on in this game that I am so, I'm just so frustrated in the matter of, this is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to this offense. It's the same 0 and 100 crap that gets displayed on the field every single day. And even though this team is in the National League Championship Series, the way that they philosophize, the way that this philosophy is brought onto these hitters is the reason why this team could literally win the World Series, and I still would be pushing to fire this hitting coach staff. Because none of this is going to sustain in any matter against pitching like this, against teams like this. And I'm sure tomorrow they will score 7 runs, they will score 4 in one inning, 3 in another, and we'll call it a day, and then we'll all be happy. But this continues to be an issue every single game. Every single game, they always seem to stall, they always seem to fall asleep, and then they just wait for Lindor or Vientos to bail them out. And at one point, that's not going to work. At one point, that is just not going to be the deal. Not every single time can you make a magical comeback. I'm sure it will happen again. I'm sure they will find a way to come back in one of these games and fight back. But the problem is that when you have a team like the Dodgers, who is up to the task, doesn't have many holes on their team, develop pitching very well, good high leverage relievers, it's not going to look as efficient. You can't wait for just things to bail you out this way. And listen, I'm not saying the Mets offense is bad. I'm saying the Mets offense is the biggest tightrope offense I think I've ever seen. It's either they are so on it, either they are so hot or they are so cold. It's so aggravating the way that this team gives up so many chances and so many opportunities that are handed to them on a silver platter that it's going to end up they're going to end up having ugly losses like this. And I can tell you right now, if this offense is the same as it was next year, and this is a whole different topic, this is not going to work out the way that it has been working out this year. Because there are a few guys who are doing what they are doing that I don't think is going to keep up going forward. Because there's going to be adjustments made by some pitchers, and it's not going to continue to go. Which there is 100% a lot of changes that do need to be made, even regarding this huge playoff run. And I hope that those changes are taken into account. As for Luis Severino, lots of batting average on balls in play, lots of shitty luck for him, but he did not pitch a good game. Lots of walks, lots of base runners, couldn't miss enough bats, was not walking. I mean, he was basically just allowing the bottom of the order to destroy them and then setting up an even worse situation to the top of the order. Max Muncy continues another great game by him. The bottom of this lineup, Kike Hernandez, the postseason legend himself. Tommy Edman continues to be a pain in the ass. Will Smith, I mean, he really didn't even swing the bat that well today, but he was able to get the results. The Mets definitely ran into some tough luck at the beginning there. And they had an opportunity to respond. The offense did not. Severino, this was not his best. And to be honest, he has really not pitched the best in this postseason. He's had, the offense put him in a position where he's had the lead. And he's been okay. Best game he pitched was most likely against Philly, but we all know how that ended. The walks continue to kill this team. It always will. The walks will always continue to cost this team. And then the defensive miscues as well. Francisco Alvarez, what an awful game by him. What a terrible game. That was one of the worst games I have seen by a single player from both sides of the ball in a while. Francisco Alvarez had an awful night tonight. He was, I don't want to spoil it for you, but he's the easy dud for this series, for this game as well. That decision to, that fielder's choice decision to go get the out at first, I think it was in the second inning. That was stupid. Alvarez coming up with runners in scoring position multiple times, doing absolutely nothing, staring at pitches, half swinging. He lost his bat, I'm pretty sure, the first swing that he looked like a mess. And listen, I'm not trying to say I'm not trying to put it all on a 22-year-old kid, okay? I'm not trying to. But, like, I am just calling it as I see it right now. This was a terrible game by Francisco Alvarez. He is not the main reason why they lost this game. But he looks lost out there. He looks lost. From both sides, he looks lost. And I'm not trying to throw him under the bus so much here. He is a product of a lot of things going wrong this season. I understand that. But there were things in this game from the defensive side, from the offensive side, when it comes to Alvarez, where anyone at any point, it was pretty much common sense that he was screwing up. Common sense moments from him that he was messing up. And Carlos Mendoza did say, after asking if Luis Torrens was put into consideration, he did say that Alvarez is going to play tomorrow. Which, to be honest, I'm not really upset in the matter because Torrens has not played at all, like forever. So him coming cold off the bench this deep into a postseason run, what the hell is the point, to be honest? I do think that he should get one start, but to be honest, it seems like they are committed to having Alvarez behind the plate. It seems like pitchers love throwing to him. And the problem that I have with this is the fact that even though he is a young player, and I understand that it comes and goes, he's always been very streaky. He shows up, then he disappears. And from the 9-hole, with the bottom of the lineup getting on as much as they do, past with how, Marte has been in this postseason. You've seen Taylor get on base in some situations. Iglesias has gotten on base. The amount of times that we've seen stuff like this, you're putting Francisco Alvarez in a lot of these positions where he does need to drive in runs. Situationally, he's just not there. He's just not there. And I'm not trying to put the blame completely on him, but I don't even know how to define it, to be honest. I just don't. I really don't. Lindor hit the ball a few times well today. Nothing to show for it. Did strike out with the bases loaded. I think that was probably the best pitch that he threw all night, Buehler, to be honest. That what was it, 3-2 curveball to Lindor or something, to end the third or fourth. I forget which one it was, but that was probably the best pitch I saw him throw all night because he was not pitching a good game. So Buehler looked like shit. He basically gave them every opportunity to kill him, and the Mets basically just said, yep, let's just stare at this crap. Let's just stare at it, wave at everything, offer at everything, bail this guy out, even though he was laboring through 4 innings, do nothing. Just do nothing and roll over and die. It seems like every single time, every single struggling pitcher that it seems like the Mets should have a good offensive performance against, it seems like we are always the get-right team for them. Because they just get a little cute sometimes. They just try to do too much. They overthink. And sometimes they come through. Sometimes they do. But in the process of it, how is that actually going to sustain to anything? Against a team like this where you can't make as many mistakes as they did. So it's really, really hard in order to really piece this thing all together when these types of opportunities come so many times, but the success comes at a premium, especially against a Dodgers team that has good pitching. So, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. I could probably rant on forever. It's only me here, but I probably could rant for over 2 hours with everything that I'm seeing right now. Let's get into some of the comments here. Steve coming in saying a good offense would have beat up Buehler. This guy isn't good. I was telling you, he did not pitch a really good game. Ricardo saying JDM needs to retire. To be honest, I feel like if the old regime was here, such as a guy that I will not even mention who drives me nuts, let's just say is suspended throughout the rest of the season. To be honest, if the Mets made this deep run like they have, JDM probably would have been brought back. But I don't want to see him here anymore. And he can come through big for us for the rest of this series. I still don't want to see him. He's 37 years old. It's pretty obvious that the guy put on a Mets uniform and all of a sudden he's 84. Like it really, it's like he's been 84 years old since that June hot streak happened. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. I really don't. Christopher saying I'm not mad at Alvarez. I'm mad that Terens needs to come in. To be honest, yes, that is a good point. That is a good point. Another thing that we can add in here, Winker. We all know that he has a good history against Walker Buehler, and he was not started. He did not start. Martinez. It seemed just like a give me to put Winker in here, who has 2 home runs against Walker Buehler. And he was not put in the lineup. And the fact that JD Martinez, with runners in scoring position, waving at crap like he has been doing ever since that hot streak ended in June, it really seemed to be the shitty decision to make, especially with the way that they were hitting and the way that they had so many chances to get back into this game before it went all rogue, of course, because eventually these Dodger hitters are going to make you pay. They absolutely just did nothing against a pitcher that pitched an awful game. He was all over the place. All over the place. And they bailed him out every single time. Very similar to what happened against Ranger Suarez. Obviously, Lindor came to the rescue. Lindor wasn't able to come to the rescue this time. And it pretty much shows. So, we'll see what happens in regards to it. Game 4, they still, I know, can Game 4, they can still figure it out, but again, you can't keep exchanging wins with this team. You can't. At one point you're going to run out of chances. MEZ saying, I said Nimmo should not be playing. Nimmo, it seemed like he was wincing a little bit at the plate in the middle of the game. It seemed like his foot was acting up a little bit. I think he swung the bat a lot better today. I do. Again, some hard luck from him. He did put the ball in play. He hit the ball pretty hard. He did have that one little hit down the third base line. But I do think that he did hit the ball a lot better today. He just did not get some of the results he also did get on base. So, I do think that Nimmo is providing something, but he's not providing enough where he should be in the 3-hole right now. But they don't really have much of a choice in the matter. We'll see what happens regarding Nimmo. It seems like he feels fine. Like, I mean, I don't really, I'm not really here to like panic when in regards to Brandon Nimmo, because like he's still providing, just not the 3-hole providing right now. Like, the problem with this is like, here's how I look at it. The problem is that you're kind of backed up into the corner regarding Brandon Nimmo right now, because the other options are, you know, Winker, who we know cannot play the outfield, but he probably should have played left field if you were going to start Martinez today. The problem with Nimmo in regards to that is you also do have like, you do have Bader, who has not played much and also has not hit well. McNeil has not played in a long time. He hasn't played in weeks. He has like the only way that anybody is going to get hot in regards to the Nimmo, with them having the deep outfield they have, it's all going to go by rhythm. And right now you don't have any time for that. You don't have any time. So, I mean, I don't really know how to establish something like that. Rosie K saying the issue isn't just Nimmo. There are so many automatic outs in this lineup right now. Yeah, I mean, it seems like they show up 50% of the time. Again, it's 0 to 100. So, like, it's either everyone's an automatic out or everyone's a tough out. That's kind of how I look at it. There's no in between. There just is not a single in between when it comes to this offense. And they're not going to be able to sustain this going forward. There's, again, like I've said, a lot of changes do need to be made in regards to the offense. But we'll see what happens. There are some comments in here that it may seem like I'm ignoring it, but I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. So if there's any comments that you guys do make that I do miss, that is probably a good point. I'll scroll through them in a little bit. But I do want to recap what happened in this game fully of the summary. Even though it's not great to hear, we must do it. Now, Luis Severino did get the start today, like we said, against Walker Buehler. He had a solid first inning. Other than that, it just all went rogue afterwards. In the second, after a leadoff walk to Max Muncy and a fielder's choice miscue by Alvarez, like we said, Will Smith would drive in the first run on a ground ball deflected off Luis Severino's glove to make it 1-0 Dodgers. You had runners at the corners, 1 out. Tommy Edman would make it a 2-0 game on a sacrifice fly following an incredible catch by Tyrone Taylor in center field. Luis Severino would work out of a bases-loaded jam in the third, and after a 2-out single to Freeman and a walk to Muncy, Reed Garrett would come in relief and strike out Teoscar Hernandez on 4 pitches to close the book on Severino. 4 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 earned runs, 2 unearned runs, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts on 95 pitches. Garrett would come back out for the 6th and get the first 2 outs, but Tommy Edman would get on with a single and move over to second on a balk by Garrett. Kike Hernandez would then double the Dodgers lead with a 2-run shot to left to make it 4-0. Fast forward to the 7th, excuse me. Tyler McGill would toss a scoreless 7th, but come back out for the 8th, and it was the exact opposite after a leadoff walk to Will Smith and a 1-out single by Kike Hernandez. Shohei Ohtani would strike, blasting a 3-run homer down the right field line to make it 7-0. McGill would also pitch the 9th and give up another home run to Max Muncy to make it 8-0. And as for the Mets offense, similar to Game 1, like we have said, plenty of chances, could not cash in. 8 runners were stranded. I believe that they were like 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Walker Buehler worked in and out of trouble. And, the offense, same crap of the 0 to 100. basically staring at strikes, waving at garbage, and the Dodgers take a 2-1 series lead, and they shut out the Mets for the second time in 4 days. Yeah. Basically everything went wrong for this team. Pretty much, I mean, I feel like I just watched the exact same game, just in a different ballpark as game 1. There really is not anything that needs to be explained as to why it happened, because the Mets beat themselves in this game. And then, the Dodgers were able to just come away with it, homering off our bullpen, homering off Garrett. In regards to McGill, I do want to talk about McGill in a second. But I do want to get into the studs and duds here. For me, I think it's pretty easy to say that Francisco Alvarez is the dud. We already talked about him. He absolutely looked lost in this game from both sides of the ball. He was awful, making terrible decisions, making terrible swing decisions. But the stud, I'm going to give this one to Tyrone Taylor, because he basically gave us the only sliver of hope, the only sliver of excitement with that incredible catch he made in the second inning. He also got on base to start off a rally, but the Mets could not finish it. So Tyrone Taylor doing the little things right, as per usual, winning ball player, and he's the only stud that I've got in this one in regards to that. Everything else was pretty shitty. I'm not going to lie. All of it was just unwatchable at one point. I am not, again, in regards to this series, it's far from over, obviously. I do believe that they will win one of these games at Citi Field. But there is going to be a lot of fight that they're going to have to show in order to finish this thing off and go to the World Series. And right now, there are things that do need to be fixed, and I don't know how they're going to do that in Game 4, because Game 4, Quintana's been pitching great. We'll see what happens, how he bodes against this Dodger team that does not chase. And then you have Senga lined up for Game 5, who was horrendous in Game 1. So they definitely have their work cut out for them. Let's just say that, going towards the end of this season, at the end of this series, excuse me. Now, as for other things that I do want to get into, I do want to address some of the comments from earlier. Obviously, Luis Torrens, some people talking about him. Ricardo saying, can Mendoza stop with the JDM experiment? And I hate to break it, but Francisco Alvarez can't hit a beach ball right now. Obviously, we were talking about Francisco Alvarez. I think, what was it, in the first game or the second game, after the second game yesterday, the post game before or whatever. We were talking about Francisco Alvarez in regards to, maybe giving him rest and just having him focus on the hitting as a pinch hitter. I think it should be considered, but it seems like they're just going to continue to go with him. He's still, again, I'm still optimistic about Francisco Alvarez going forward. He's still young, but right now I feel like it's the inexperience is really killing us in regards to Francisco Alvarez. I'm all in favor of letting the young guys play. But there are a lot of major changes that do need to be made in regards to Alvarez, and that's more of an off-season talk. Now, speaking of more off-season talk, before I get into more of the comments, so guys, make sure if you have any comments or questions, make sure to leave them in the YouTube chat. If you're watching on Twitter, you can as well. When it comes to a lot of things that went on, there is one thing that I do want to say it's more of an off-season topic, but I will say in foreshadow sense. that I think, and it should be, to be honest, how I feel in regards to Tyler McGill, in the trajectory it is going with how they have used him in the postseason, with how they've kind of just overlooked him a lot, with how he's pretty much been put into the mop-up duty, and then pretty much just still having the same problems. I think that tonight was the last, like, if I were to make a guess, I think that tonight was the last time you see Tyler McGill pitch in a Mets uniform. I do believe that was what just happened, because you think about it, he threw 72 pitches. He's not going to be available for the rest of this series. They're not going to use him. And even if the Mets do go to the World Series, he most likely will be left off of the roster. And they'll probably go to Brazaban. They'll probably go to somebody else. I don't know what they're going to do in regards to that. But I do think it's some of the things that I saw tonight it's pretty much the same thing that we saw from McGill in regards to, in regards to like things that went on, in this outing. Even though it was a low leverage outing, it was mop up duty. It was pretty much the same thing we've seen from McGill, going 3 innings, walking batters, 72 pitches through 3 innings. It's pretty much the same thing. Now, don't get me wrong. Tyler McGill is going to be a great pitcher wherever he ends up. I'm telling you, he'll go to Seattle. He'll go to Tampa. He'll go somewhere where they develop good pitching. He is going to be a great pitcher wherever he ends up. But for some reason, the Mets just have not been able to tap into anything. They have not been able to connect the puzzle. He's basically a leaking faucet at this point. One thing goes well, the other thing drops out, and they can't figure it out. So I do think that Tyler McGill is, at this point, from what we are seeing, I do think that Tyler McGill is the number 1 non-tender candidate going into this offseason. Because I do believe he will be in like ARB 1 or ARB 2 or whatever. I think that this is it. This is probably the last you saw of him. Given how they feel about him going forward, you just can't keep going like this. You just can't keep going like this year in and year out, where in the bullpen he hasn't had any success. In the rotation he hasn't had any success. And don't get me wrong, again, like I said, and I will guarantee you this, McGill is going to be a great pitcher wherever he ends up. They will turn him into a solid starter, solid reliever. He will be a really good pitcher wherever he ends up. Because the stuff is there. The stuff is 100% there. And he has some of the, to be honest, he has some of the best stuff on the Mets pitching staff. But there's been no execution. He's been here for 4 years, and there's been absolutely no execution. Hasn't been able to figure it out. And I feel like it's getting pretty telling what happens when it's pretty telling what happens when you just can make so many adjustments. You can have so much talent, but when you don't execute it, it just goes a different way. It just goes a completely different way. It goes south, and he's just not going to succeed here. He just is not going to succeed here. And in regards to McGill, Explosive saying it took David Peterson 5 years. Maybe McGill turns it around next season. The thing is that we expected Peterson to be a solid pitcher. Like, we expected him to be a solid pitcher. And he was a first-round pedigree talent, right? He eventually tapped into it. Although he has been underwhelming overall in his career, it seems like he's finally turned a corner, which is good. We already know my stuff regarding, we already know my thoughts regarding David Peterson, but he has been able to, put things together in the way where he can get these results and he can keep his team in the game and he can put himself in these situations as to where he can pitch from the stretch. With Megill, he was a 2-pitch reliever, converted 2-pitch reliever from the pandemic. He was an 8th-round pick. He's shown promise. He does have great stuff. He's a live arm. And he's going to turn into a gem. He will eventually. But for some reason, the Mets have just not been able to tap into it. This is funny if you're a Raiders fan. This is hilarious. I do think that they don't lack that. But you just caught them on a really, really bad night. 0 or 100. But you know, this is absolutely hilarious. I'm not going to lie, especially with what has been going on in Raider Nation these past few weeks. Let's just say that. And Rosie coming in, Megill did the same thing in the Phillies loss. Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. Okay. There's the concept of controlling command with him. It's a leaking faucet. Like I said, they don't have any way to put any of this together in any regard whatsoever with Megill. And I think that the Mets pitching development has gotten better recently, but there are still failed projects. There just still are. There are failed pieces. It's been up and down this season. It's been better. I will say it has been better. But there are some pieces that are just like damaged beyond repair in this organization, and they need a change of scenery. And Tylor Megill might be one of those guys. I hate to say it. And to be honest, I still do believe that Tylor Megill can be good, but will it happen? Who the hell knows? You know, you can always have a hunch that this guy has talent, but sometimes they just don't tap it. They just don't tap into it. Like Francisco Alvarez right now, he's struggling. We know he has talent, 100%. We know he has talent. Daniel coming in here. What's going on? One of our loyal guys. We'll see what happens again. But there are a few things that need to be adjusted. Absolutely. Chris Dudley coming in. Snakes are an ancient sign of health and resilience. That's what they're on a physician staff. I think he's talking about the snake in the dugout or something like that, right? Is that what you guys are talking about? Yeah, from game 2 or whatever. Listen, we'll see. We'll see. Series isn't over yet. Series isn't over yet, so we'll see what happens. I did find it a little funny that we had, like, what was it, 2 defensive miscues from our only Gold Glove Award nomination, Luis Severino. And then Francisco Lindor makes this incredible play against Mookie Betts, and he's not nominated for the Gold Glove. To be honest, I don't really care about it, but it's just funny. It was just kind of ironic where you had Luis Severino on the mound today, and one of the biggest culprits was him making defensive miscues for what got the Dodgers started. What do you think? All right. What do you think about the Twitter conspiracy theorists that are saying the Dodgers are cheating? If they're talking about the baseballs leaving the park, leaving the Dodgers bats and not the Mets bats, that was the Mets' fault. They weren't pulling a fly ball in cold weather in a pitcher's park. If you're saying the Dodgers are cheating, what if I know? Who knows if I would know? I mean, I don't know. If they are, they're doing a good job at it. But I think that the Mets have a lot more problems right now in this series than just the Dodgers cheating. Like, if the Dodgers were cheating, to be honest, who cares? You can't score 0 runs and win playoff games. Like, it just can't happen. It was about Ohtani being mad about the strikeout call. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, but I don't know. The Dodgers are a good team. I mean, this is a good Dodgers team. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the same thing went with, that Astros team that cheated. They didn't need to cheat. They were the best team already. That's what makes it so frustrating, Like, that's what made it so frustrating in that regard. They finally got the monkey off their back, of course. What was it, 2022 or 2021? 2022. 2022, they won the World Series. They got the monkey off their back. But that's the frustration of the part. But the Dodgers, I mean, this is a good team. I mean, they are a really good team. But listen, I'm never one to be. I don't use the victim mentality as a Mets fan. I'm one of the few that don't. I'm not the one who just says, God hates the Mets. Everything is against the Mets. Because most of it is done by the Mets themselves. There are things that you would find unfair. Everyone does. But I don't really like making excuses. I really don't. I'm just not one who does. I just am not. I don't make excuses. I mean, what am I going to say? I mean, you can say, I said Bueller didn't pitch a good game. He didn't pitch a good game because that's true. He was not good. He got the results. He was not good. But why did he get those results? It was because the Mets decided to give them to him. They decided to bail him out. I mean, for a majority of this game, the Dodgers did not win this game. The Mets lost it. Everything went wrong for them, but a lot of it was their fault. A lot of it was their fault. I saw some people talking about Matt Allen in the chat. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he seems to be he was throwing later on this year. It seems like he's going to be full go for 2025. So we'll see what happens. He's still young, but he does have a long way to go. He's only pitched 10 innings since being drafted in 2019. So it's going to be a while until he gets up here. So he could be one of those cases that if he gets up here, you see him at age 28, 29. You'll see him. You might see him for a while. You might not see him for a while. I'm not going to lie. But away from all of that, we'll see what happens in Game 4. Obviously, we'll have coverage of that for the pregame. Me and my co-host will be back. I was supposed to have a special guest on here, but that special guest ended up going to the game, and he just could not schedule it right or time it correctly to get on here. So you know what? It's fine. I'm here to do it solo. I have a lot of things that I can say, of course. That we'll see what happens. Caution coming in here saying Blackburn turned out to be a bust. I mean, I do think that in the sense of what they needed for the rotation, yes, it definitely did not go their way. They did not make. To be honest, I didn't. It was a fine move. Like, I didn't really care about like the Blackburn. It was rotation depth. It was quantity, but then he was not depth. Like, he just was not depth. He got hurt. Like, he just got banged up. He does have another year of control, so he will be back next year. And I'm sure that he'll put up a lot better of a campaign if he can stay healthy, because he really has struggled to stay healthy recently. We'll see what happens. Ginge is coming in here saying the Mets need a lineup switch tomorrow. They're going to have to make some adjustments to this, but I don't think they're going to. I do think that they're going to put Winker in there. Alvarez will start like Carlos Mendoza said. I still wouldn't put Jeff McNeil out there, but what the hell do I know? I'm sure he'll be out there. Again, I just don't think it's either McNeil is healthy or just, whether you think McNeil is healthy or not 100% or not, I just really don't see it. I really don't. But we'll see. Again, I can go into this argument constantly with people. I'm not going to, but I mean, it's whatever. I feel like what the Mets were doing tonight, staring at strikes the way that they were meriting putting McNeil into the lineup the next day or getting him in there at some point. But when he swings at the first pitch, it's usually just some lazy fly ball or some lazy pop-up. Like, I'm looking at McNeil as square one right now. I'm not looking at it from, the great second half that he had before he got injured. When it comes to McNeil, he always slows down after an injury. So, and we don't really have any time for him to pick it up or get these reps in. I mean, we're in the postseason now. I just don't see any way that he just fits into this equation. I just don't. I don't think that fixes anything. I don't. Not to mention, I just think Iglesias still is the better play. I know that he has not looked great, but I still do think he's the better play. But you can disagree. You can disagree all you want with me if you want to. It's fine. Nothing I haven't heard before. All right. Chris Dudley saying should be a pitcher duel tomorrow. Both have been on fire, but the Dodgers bullpen is vicious. Yep, they do have a good bullpen. Let's just say that. Kopech is disgusting, and he most likely will end up being their closer next year. I think, they were talking about it on the broadcast of, Dave Roberts trying to vary the pitchers that he has. He's trying for them not to see each pitcher on back-to-back days. We ended up getting to Brazier again, but again, they stranded those runners, so it's not like it mattered. But it seems like every other day, like they're switching these things in and out with the bullpen unit for them, and that's been kind of their plan. Caution saying, man, I wish we had Nunez and Raley. Yeah, absolutely. They were big I mean, it definitely is. It's showing the lack of lefty reliever stuff that we have in there, because we know that Danny Young, we're not going to put them out there. Peterson probably, to be honest, he's long relief if you're going to put him out there. Like, he should not just be designated to being a one-inning reliever. Caution saying, I would have loved to see how Drew Smith would have done in the playoffs. He would have done terrible. He would have been awful. Drew Smith is a barrel machine, and good hitters like these will make you pay. But Drew Smith, it looks like he's pitched his last game as a New York Met. Obviously undergoing Tommy John surgery. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So some team might pick him up like what the Mets did with John Curtis, where he rehabs for the season and he's still getting paid, and they pick up some kind of option. That's probably what will happen with Drew Smith, but I've seen enough of Drew Smith's tenure here to know that he is not a high leverage reliever, and he does not belong on a playoff roster. We'll see what happens. Rosie saying the Mets also have a starter quality issue. Minaya is the only one who is pitching well. I mean, Quintana's been good down the stretch, but I understand that Quintana's not coming back next year. He's just aged. He really has aged. Yeah, they're definitely going to have to go after the pitching market. They definitely are. They're definitely going to have to address the pitching market. I've talked about Minaya being the only guy I'd go after. We'll talk about that when the off season comes, of course, regarding all the free agents, because there are a lot of them, because a lot of guys they signed to minor league to 1 year deals. And then you obviously have the story of Pete Alonso, what they're going to do with him. We'll see what happens. I don't trust Quintana against this Dodgers lineup. To be honest, I don't know. I really, they don't chase, and that's what Quintana specializes in, so it's going to be rough. Let's just say that. From his sick bed, my co-host, Andrew Acevedo, is here. Everyone say hello to Andrew. Give him a little middle finger emoji as well. Fuck him for not coming on here. Fuck him for getting sick. It's all his fault. But we'll see what happens. Blake Snell, $400 million contract on the way. I highly doubt that'll happen. Mets have an actual executive who makes smart moves. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. Again, there's tons of pitchers out there, including Walker Buehler, if they want to tap into it. But after 2 Tommy John surgeries, I wouldn't touch that. But again, that's all off-season talk. Season is still going. We're still mathematically in this one, no matter how much this gut punch was to anyone. Hopefully, they can bounce back in Game 4, which will be tomorrow at the same time. 8:08 is the first pitch. 6:30 will be our pre-game coverage of Game 4, and of course the post-game. I will have a special guest on for Game 4 post-game. This time I hope that it will actually happen. But you know, things happen. I'm a reasonable guy. I don't get angry if somebody can't make it. It happens. Life happens. My guest was at the game today, so you know it was tough to get out. So timing just wasn't there. But no, it will not be Grimace. But it will be a Grimace enthusiast. He's been on our show before. I will say that. Mets gave up 22 walks in this series so far. They absolutely did. And it came back to bite them so many times. Welcome to the Mets brand of baseball, where we walk a bunch of batters, nibble around the strike zone, and don't trust our stuff. Okay. Listen, I think that overall the lesson from this game is don't make defensive miscues the way that they did. The offense needs to be more consistent, and they need to just look better situationally and stop staring at pitches. They need to be a lot more aggressive with pitchers in the zone. They had a golden opportunity to take a lead in this series with Walker Buehler struggling the way that he did, and they let him get away with a lot of shit. They let him get away with a lot of garbage that he was throwing today, and it was awful. It was awful. Let's just say that. Mets getting the Dodgers bad hitters with walks. Yeah, we do that all the time. We nibble around the strike zone. That's our thing. Nibble. Pitching around the bottom of the order. You have no idea. For those of you who are Dodger fans and you don't know how the Mets have operated this year, they have a massive problem with walking the 9-hole hitter. They have a massive problem with the bottom of the order. You know, we'll see. Anthony DiComo just tweeted out saying Carlos Mendoza does not anticipate shaking up his lineup much for Game 4. He wants all right-handed hitters in there, giving Yamamoto's reverse splits, which does make sense. Francisco Alvarez will play. Jeff McNeil will not, which is the right move, in my opinion. There's no reason to make as many rapid adjustments now. I mean, they've gotten very far with this so far. There's no reason as to where they just need to scrap this thing and just switch everything up. I think that now they're in the rhythm in the fact where they're getting guys on. They're setting it's not like they're just completely silent. They are getting guys into scoring position. They just got to finish the job. They have to finish the job. I don't know what to say. Like, they are getting the opportunities. And sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. You can't just have Lindor and Vientos bail you out every single time. You never know. I do think that Winker is going to be the only change tomorrow in regards to that. But we will talk about it. We will talk about that, of course, in the pregame show tomorrow, which will be at 6:30 Eastern Time. For those of you in here who tuned in for the full show, thank you very much. For those of you on Twitter, Make sure to follow us on TikTok as well for future content over there in the off season, most likely. Follow us all individually, including my two co-hosts who are not here today. And yeah, we're pretty much going to wrap this up. I'll stay on for about 5 more minutes for those of you who want to get your last questions in, your last comments, your last all of that. But pretty much straightforward. This was nearly a repeat of game one. Game one was this exact thing, just in a different ballpark. This was not a well performed game by the Mets. Let's just say that. Not great. But other than that, other things that I'd like to bring up, let's just say, there was a little bit of a controversy, I would say, because there were fans at the game that were all over Twitter who said that Shohei Ohtani's home run was foul. Could it be possible that it was? Maybe. Who knows? But they were so down at that point, it didn't even fucking matter. And listen, I understand this silver platter to Ohtani thing that gets annoying. It does. It 100% does. But, you knew that eventually he was going to turn into one. And against a McGill that just seems like he just can't size up any of the stuff that he has. He can't apply anything, like I said. Again, I really... it's games like this that really show what does need to change down the line, of course. But, they made a great run this year. Again, they've been on a great run, and even if they don't end up advancing out of this round, this was definitely past the expectations they had. And I'm excited for what they do in the future, but there are a few changes that do need to be addressed. They definitely do need to be addressed. Hopefully they do. Other than Diaz and Stanek, you guys got any good relievers? Well, we have a lot of starters converted relievers like Jose Budo. Right now, David Peterson's coming out of the pen. We have a lot of guys with upside, but have not been able to put it together, or they just walk the whole fucking ballpark. Reed Garrett has been up and down this year. He's had a lot of hot stretches, and he's had a lot of cold stretches. Brooks Raley and Danel Nunez were the biggest losses to our bullpen this year. For those of you who want to know, Danel Nunez was fantastic. I mean, he probably was our best reliever this year, but he got hurt. And then Brooks Raley, who has been one of the best lefty relievers, one of the best lefty relievers in all of baseball. And he was good for the Mets last year. One of the few good Billy Epler moves, but he underwent Tommy John surgery. So most likely he will not pitch for the Mets ever again, because he will be out for a majority of the season. And also, I believe he is a free agent at the end of the year. So most likely he will not come back. But no, they have guys who have upside that they can turn into good relievers, and they've done a decent amount job so far of what they have done as compared to what they were doing before. But, relievers in and out, that's just kind of how they are. But we'll see what they do in regards to that. There's tons of moves that do need to be made, irregardless to what they do and how they end this season. All right. So if there isn't any more questions, any more comments, I think I'm going to end it off here. Once again, for those of you who tuned in for the whole thing, for those of you who popped in for a little bit, thank you so much. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Like the stream if you're here on YouTube. It really helps us out. Turn on post notifications to not miss our pre-game show, which is only on our YouTube channel and our Twitter as well. Those audios do not go out, but the audio for this podcast goes out, which is the post games. And, we'll see We'll see what we have in store for the rest of this series. The Mets aren't done yet. They still have tons of chances to get back into this series and fight back like they've done all year. But this was not a fun game. This was not fun. And hopefully they can bounce back tomorrow. Jose Iglesias, Jose Quintana. Wow, I'm already losing it. It's past midnight, guys. My apologies. It's past midnight over here on the East Coast if you're a Dodgers fan watching. Jose Quintana on the mound tomorrow. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the Mets were connected to in the offseason, but he ended up going to the Dodgers. That will be the pitching matchup tomorrow for Game 4 at Citi Field once again. And let's see if they can bounce back again like they did in Game 2. And when they do, or if they don't, we will be here to cover it all. Anyways, we will see you guys next time. Let's go Mets. We have had better days than this. Hopefully we can bounce back. We'll see you guys next time.